I am 38 years old and he is 22. This is our love story. I was 38, had a great job, but I was very lonely. I never thought the person who would change my life would be a 22-year-old who makes coffee. This is the story of our love that other people didn't approve of, and how we fought to get it back after a lie almost ended our relationship for good. This is our story. From the outside, my life seemed perfect. I was a senior manager at a big marketing company. I worked 16-hour days and worked very hard to get there, which didn't leave time for much else. I lived in a nice apartment with big windows and a view of the city. Everything was modern and expensive. The art was nice, and the whole place was clean, quiet, and very empty. Success is strange. It's what you work hard for, but no one tells you how quiet it can be. My schedule was full of meetings and work dinners. I could talk to a room of 100 people easily, but I hadn't had a real, honest talk with anyone in years. My friendships felt like business deals. We would get expensive drinks, talk about work, and then go home to our beautiful, lonely houses. We were all just pretending that our jobs were enough to make us happy. I remember one night I was standing by my big window, looking at all the lights in the city. Each light was a home with a story. Families eating dinner, couples watching TV, friends laughing. And then there was me, in my silent, perfect apartment in the sky, holding a glass of wine I didn't want. The loneliness felt like a heavy weight in my chest. I realized I had built a beautiful prison for myself. It was covered in success, but it was still a prison. I had everything I was supposed to want, but I had no one to share it with. I felt like my heart wasn't there anymore. I had a great career, but I really needed to connect with someone. I just didn't know it until I met Daniel. My routine was like my protection. I would wake up at 5 a.m., go to the gym, work, go home, and sleep. I did this every day. The only different thing I did, the only small joy I had, was getting coffee in the morning from a small shop near my office. It wasn't a big, clean chain coffee shop. This place was warm, a little messy, and smelled like coffee and cinnamon. It felt real. And that's where my perfect empty life was about to change completely. The coffee shop was called The Daily Grind, a common name, but the shop itself was special. It had different kinds of wooden chairs, art from local people on the walls, and music that changed from 90s rock to folk songs. The place had a good feeling, and for 10 minutes every morning, I felt like I was part of it. I first saw him on a Tuesday. I was wearing my usual work clothes, a nice suit, my hair up, and my phone in my hand, already checking emails. He was new. I hadn't seen him there before. He had messy dark hair that fell into his eyes, some freckles on his nose, and a bright, genuine smile. He moved gracefully while he made the coffee. He was humming a song I didn't know, and he just looked happy. So simply happy. It was so different from what I was used to that I just stared. "What can I get for you?" he asked. His voice was warm. I ordered what I always get, a large black coffee, no sugar or milk, the simplest drink you could order. He nodded, but he was still smiling. "A purist. I like that," he said. He did more than take my order. He connected with me. It was a small thing, but it was more personal than any conversation I'd had all week. The next day, he remembered me. "The usual for the purist?" he asked, getting a cup. I was surprised. In my life, people remembered my job title or how much money I had. They didn't remember my coffee order. I gave a small smile and nodded. This became our morning routine. I would come in, he would greet me with his easy smile, and we would talk for a few moments. I learned his name was Daniel. He wanted to be a musician and worked at the shop to pay his bills. He played music in small bars at night. He told me about his life with passion, not shame. His life was so different from mine. He cared about his art and his dreams, not money or job titles. He was really living his life while I felt like I was just managing mine. Our talks started to get longer. He would ask about my day, and I would tell him about a bad meeting or a small success. And he really listened, with his head tilted and his eyes on me. In return, he would tell me about his world a new song he was working on, or a funny story from his day. His stories were small and simple, but they were full of life. He was bringing fresh air into my boring world. The big moment happened after about a month. I had a very hard day at work. We lost a big client and everyone was blaming each other. I felt tired and defeated. I walked into the coffee shop and I'm sure I looked very upset. Daniel saw me and his smile became softer. "Rough day?" he asked kindly. I just nodded, too tired to pretend I was fine. He made my coffee, but instead of just giving it to me, he drew a funny smiley face in the foam. It was silly and childish and exactly what I needed. I looked at the cup, then at him, and I really laughed from deep inside. It felt like coming up for air after being underwater for too long. "Thank you," I said, and I really meant it. "Any time," he said, and his eyes smiled. "Music helps too. You should come to my show on Friday night. I'm playing at the Bitter Leaf." My brain quickly thought of all the reasons not to go. It's a small bar. I'll be too tired. I have to work. But I heard myself say, "Okay, I'd like that." The decision didn't come from my brain. It came from my heart, which was finally starting to feel something again. The Bitter Leaf was a dark, crowded bar. I hadn't been to a place like that in years. But when Daniel got on the small stage with his guitar, the whole room seemed to light up. He didn't just play songs, he told stories. His voice was full of honest feeling, and his songs were about hope and dreams that I thought I had lost. I stood in the back, feeling like I didn't belong in my expensive clothes, and I felt something change inside me. I wasn't watching a coffee shop worker. I was watching an artist. After he finished, he found me in the crowd, his face happy and excited. "You came!" he yelled over the music. "You were amazing," I told him, and it was the most honest thing I had said all year. We ended up talking for hours in a small booth. We talked about everything's dream to make an album, my forgotten dream to be a photographer, our favorite books and biggest fears. It was just easy. The walls I had built around myself for years started to come down because of his warm attention. And then he asked, "So, what was life like when you were 22?" The question was innocent, but it made me pause. I did the math. He was talking about his life right now. For me, that was 16 years ago. It felt like a completely different life. Daniel, I said slowly, how old do you think I am? He looked at me, really thinking about the question for the first time. I don't know. 30? 32? I took a deep breath. I'm 38. The age difference felt huge. I watched his face, expecting him to be shocked or disgusted. He blinked, and he seemed to be thinking about it. That moment felt like it lasted forever. My mind was screaming, this is it. It's over. He thinks I'm old from another time, but then he just shrugged and smiled a little. Okay, so you're 38. He moved a little closer. That doesn't change that you have the most amazing laugh I've ever heard. I was so relieved by his answer that I almost felt dizzy, but my own thoughts were not as easy to convince. A 16-year age gap. It felt like a huge divide. He was born when I was in high school. He grew up with the internet. I grew up with slow dial-up. His life was just starting, while mine felt like it was already planned out. The rules I had lived by for so long told me that this was wrong. Our first real date was a week later. I must have spent 2 hours getting ready, trying on different outfits. Nothing felt right. The suit felt too old, and the dress felt like I was trying to look too young. I was trying to hide a 16-year difference with my clothes, and it wasn't working. I suddenly noticed every small line around my eyes and every gray hair. I felt as nervous as I did when I was a teenager. He came to my door wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He was holding a single daisy that he probably picked from a park. He looked at my modern, clean apartment with big eyes. Wow, he said, this is like a movie. The difference between our lives was so clear. He was exploring his life, and I was just trying to maintain mine. He talked about his roommates and their video games. I talked about my house payment and my retirement savings. And yet, even with all those differences, our connection was real. We made each other laugh. He was interested in my stories about the business world. I was interested in his passion for his music. He brought an energy to my life that had been missing for years, and I think I gave him a sense of calm. It felt like we completed each other, but I always had that doubt in the back of my mind. Where would we be in 5 years? When he was 27 and I was 43? What about 10 years? The idea of getting older, having different energy levels, and just the passing of time, it was scary. I was falling for a man from a different generation, and I knew that the world was not going to be nice about it. For a few weeks, our relationship was our own little secret. It was just us, in my quiet apartment or at his loud shows. We were just Marisa and Daniel. But secrets don't last. The moment we went out in the world together, we weren't just two people anymore. We were something for people to stare at. An older woman and a younger man. And it seemed like everyone had an opinion about it. The first hint of this came from my closest friend from work, Sarah. I told her I was dating someone, and she was happy for me. Who is he? What does he do? She asked. I tried to sound casual. His name's Daniel. He's a musician. Oh, an artist. How romantic. How old is he? I paused. He's 22. Sarah's smile disappeared. It was just for a second, but I saw it. I saw the shock and then pity in her eyes. Oh, she said, her voice trying to sound happy. Wow, that's great. Good for you. But her eyes said something else. They were asking, is this a midlife crisis? Are you paying his bills? She was thinking of the cougar stereotype, where an older woman dates a younger man, and it felt ugly. The judgment wasn't always quiet. We went to dinner at one of the nice restaurants I usually go to. The moment we walked in, I could feel people looking at us. The host gave us a fake, disapproving smile. The waiter only talked to me, barely looking at Daniel as if he was my son, not my partner. I saw a couple at another table whispering and looking at us. I could almost hear them. Sugar mama. She must be rich. I felt my face get hot with shame. I tried to ignore it and focus on Daniel, but the feeling of being judged was always there. It made everything feel bad. Daniel's world was not much better. His friends were very mean about it. He told me about it one night and his voice was quiet. They called me his sugar mama, made rude jokes and asked if I had a retirement plan for him. Most of them had never met me, but they had made me into a joke. A rich older woman using a young, simple boy. He told me he stood up for me, but their words were like poison, hurting our relationship. The pressure came from everywhere. My mom called me, her voice full of worry. Marisa, honey, are you sure about this? What could you possibly have in common with a boy that age? What about your future? Even though she was worried because she loved me, her words just felt like another sign of disapproval. Hearing these bad things all the time started to hurt us. It started to change how I saw myself and how I saw our relationship. I would look in the mirror and only see the 16-year difference. I started to try and hide it. I bought younger clothes that felt like a costume. I even thought about getting Botox. I tried to listen to the music his friends liked, and I felt like a scientist studying a new group of people. I tried hard to be someone else, just to prove to the world and maybe myself that I was good enough, that I wasn't a sad cliché. Of course, Daniel noticed. Why are you listening to this? He'd ask, laughing, when he saw me listening to rap music. You hate this music. I'm trying to be open-minded, I'd lie, and the lie felt bad. The world was not just judging us from the outside. It was getting inside my head and making me feel doubt and shame. And because I was scared, I let those feelings grow. I was so afraid of what people were saying about us that I started to believe it myself. The worst judgment was not coming from whispers in restaurants or jokes from his friends anymore. It was coming from my own thoughts, and it was taking us to a very bad place. All the judgment was like a poison slowly hurting our relationship. It didn't break us all at once. It slowly damaged our trust. I was so afraid he would leave me for a younger woman that I pushed him away. I started to question everything he did. If he was out late with friends, my thoughts would spin out of control. Are they at a club with pretty girls his own age? Is he embarrassed to be with me? Is he comparing me to them? My insecurity was like a third person in our relationship, an ugly ghost that was always with us. I started fights for no reason, just putting my own fears onto him. "You think I'm old, don't you?" I'd say, my voice full of hurt that he didn't cause. "You wish I looked like her," he'd say, if he glanced at a young woman on the street. Daniel tried to be patient. He was a 22-year-old in his first serious relationship, and it was already difficult without me being so insecure. He would tell me again and again, "Marisa, I'm with you. I choose you." But my fear didn't let me listen. I needed him to tell me he loved me all the time, and it was making him tired. Our roles changed. I was no longer the mature, stable one. I was insecure and needy. This created a bad power dynamic that couldn't last. He started to pull away. It was small at first. He would stay out later. He wouldn't tell me much about his night. He spent more time with his friends, where he could just be a normal 22-year-old and not have to defend his relationship. I felt him slipping away, and in my panic, I held on tighter, which only made him pull away more. The betrayal, when it came, wasn't about another woman. It was a lie. A lie that happened because of the pressure in our relationship. His friend was having a big birthday party. He told me he was just going for a few hours with his band. "It's just the guys," he said. "It'll be boring." I had a bad feeling. My insecurity grew. "Are you sure? Or do you just not want me there because I'll look old?" He looked hurt and tired. "Marisa, please don't do this again. It's not about you. It's just a party." I let it go, but the worry ate at me. Later that night, I couldn't sleep, so I did something I am very ashamed of. I went on social media. I found his friend's page, and there were pictures from the party. It wasn't a boring guys thing. It was a huge, wild party, full of people his age. And in one photo, Daniel was in the background laughing with a group of people, and a girl had her arm around his shoulders. It wasn't the girl that broke my heart. It was the lie. He had lied to protect himself from how I would react, from my insecurity. He made a different life for himself that I wasn't part of, because our life together had become too hard. It felt like all my worst fears were coming true. I didn't fit in his world, and he was ashamed of me. When he came home late, I was waiting for him. I was sitting in the dark with my laptop open on the table, showing the photo. "You lied to me," I said, my voice very calm. He saw the picture, and his face turned pale. "Marisa, it's not what it looks like." "Isn't it?" I said, and my calm broke, and I was just hurt and angry. "You lied because you were embarrassed to have me there. You wanted to be with people your own age without your old girlfriend around. All those people whispering, all those jokes, they were right, weren't they?" "No, that's not it," he yelled. "I lied because I knew you'd do this. I knew you'd make it into something ugly. I can't breathe, Marisa. Every time I go out, I have to tell you everything I do. I have to defend myself for just living my life. I'm tired of it." His words hurt a lot because they were true. My insecurity had pushed him to do this. But at that moment, all I could feel was the pain of being lied to. "So this is my fault?" I screamed. "You lie to me and it's my fault." I didn't. I wanted one night of peace, he said, his voice breaking. Then you should have it, I said, my own voice turning cold. Get out. The silence after that was complete. He just stared at me, his eyes full of pain that was the same as my own. He opened his mouth to say something, but then closed it. He nodded slowly, turned, and walked out, closing the door quietly. I stood there in my silent, dark apartment, and the city lights outside seemed to be making fun of me. The beautiful prison was locked again. I had pushed him away. He betrayed me with a lie, but I also betrayed him. I had betrayed his trust by letting my fear become bigger than my love, and in that moment, I was sure we were broken for good. The days after we broke up were awful. The silence in my apartment wasn't just loneliness anymore. It was a reminder of how I had failed. Every part of the apartment reminded me of Daniel, the spot on the couch where he played his guitar, the coffee cup he used, the single daisy I had kept in a vase. I had gotten exactly what my fear wanted. I was alone, and I couldn't stand it. For the first week, I just felt sad and angry. I blamed him. I blamed his friends. I blamed our age difference. I thought about our fight over and over, each time making my arguments better and his mistake worse. But after a week of these bad thoughts, I started to hear his words again, the words he yelled because he was desperate. I can't breathe. I finally understood the truth. I had been too controlling. My fear of our age gap had become a weapon I used against him and myself. The world's judgment had become my own thoughts, and I had punished Daniel for it. I finally understood. The main problem wasn't the 16 years between us. It was that I couldn't accept it. I was so focused on how the world saw us that I forgot to just see us. It was time to fix myself. I started going to therapy, which I had been too proud to do before. I talked about the loneliness, the fear of getting older, and the deep feeling that I wasn't good enough. I had to take apart the prison I had built for myself, piece by painful piece. I realized I was valuable on my own, not because of my age, my job, or a man. I had to love and accept Marisa, the 38-year-old woman with all her good and bad parts, before I could accept love from someone else. Meanwhile, Daniel was also thinking about what happened. He called me about 3 weeks after we broke up. His voice on the phone was shaky. Can we talk? We met at a park, a neutral place between my apartment and his. He looked tired. He told me that the peace he thought he wanted just felt empty. Being with his friends was fun, but it wasn't the deep, real connection he had with me. He said lying was a cowardly mistake, that he did it because he was young and didn't know how to handle the pressure. He had run from the problem instead of talking to me about it. He apologized without making excuses. And then it was my turn. I apologized for being jealous, for accusing him, and for making my insecurities his problem. I told him about the fear and how all the judgment from other people had gotten into my heart. It wasn't about you, I explained, with tears in my eyes. It was all about me, and I'm so sorry I put you through that. We sat on that bench for hours, talking more honestly than we ever had before. We talked about everything that went wrong. It was painful, but we had to do it. We learned that the only way to fight the outside pressure and our own fears was to talk to each other, to be a team. Getting back together was not quick. It was a slow, careful process of rebuilding trust. We made new rules, like always being completely honest. If I felt insecure, I had to say, "I'm feeling insecure," instead of attacking him. If he felt pressured, he had to tell me instead of running away. We had to trust each other enough to be honest about our feelings. We started to focus on the love that brought us together in the first place, and on making our bond stronger than all the noise. We had to choose each other every single day and ignore what the rest of the world thought. That was a year ago. Today, our life isn't perfect, but it's real. We still get stares in restaurants or weird comments sometimes. The difference is, it doesn't bother us anymore. We've created our own space, one built on strength. We know what we mean to each other. I don't try to be 22 anymore. I am happy to be 39. I bring my life experience and my stability, and he brings a wonderful, exciting energy that helps me see the world in a new way. I help him with his music career, and he reminds me to laugh, to do things without planning, and to draw smiley faces in my coffee. We balance each other out. We don't have a traditional plan for the future, and that's okay. Our talks are not about marriage or kids like other couples. They're about how to support each other's dreams. His first EP record comes out next month. I've started taking photos again for the first time in 10 years, and I'm taking the pictures for his album cover. We're building a life together, the way we want to. Our story shows that love doesn't always fit into a perfect box. It can be messy and difficult, so we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on age gap relationships? Have you ever had to fight for a love that other people didn't understand? Let us know in the comments. The 16 years between us will always be there. It's a part of our story. But the age gap isn't the most important part of our story anymore. Love is. Respect is. The choice we make every day to be partners is. We learned the hard way that love isn't about your age. It's about the life you build together. And our life is just getting started.